like to give the panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves. So let's start with Angela. Angela.
I need my mute button to unmute. There we go. Good morning from Southern California. Angela Wick, founder of BA Cube, author of Future Proof about AI and business analysis, and LinkedIn Learning instructor, and most of all, just passionate about helping us get ready for the future.
Fantastic. Thanks, Angela. Let's go from Angela to Ian.
Hi. Thanks for the invitation, Adrian. Always a pleasure. Ian Richards. I've been a BA for, it must be 30 years. I've always worked for big organizations. I do quite a bit outside of work. So I work for, I'm on the leadership panel for the British Computer Society for Business Analysis. I'm lucky enough to be asked to judge UK Business Analyst of the Year a few times. I'm an advisor to the YBA. I'm on the advisory panel for this conference. So I get to do some really great stuff. At the moment, I work for a company called Acello. It's a startup. I wanted to modernize as a BA and learn new things, and we specialize in sales and marketing and getting more money in through the door. So a new area for me as a BA, but yeah, learning fast as you would imagine.
Fantastic, thanks, Ian. So if you've been doing business analysis for 30 plus years, I assume that is straight from school. You mentioned the conference again, so I am just going to put a link in the chat for anyone that might be interested in finding out more about that. And then from Ian, straight over to Karen.
Hi, so yeah, thank you for inviting me. My name's Karen. I am a business analyst leader, currently working for the UK government. So I work for a department called the Mining Remediation Authority. Passionate in all sort of business analysis and change, and happy to share thoughts and hear what other people have got to say.
Fantastic. So, well, let's get started. And do remember, if you're attending live, you can put something in the Q&A at any time, and we'll try and cover as many questions as we can. But I want to start by talking about the current impact, because we hear a lot about AI from all sorts of different angles. But in your view, what is the real impact of AI on business analysis right now beyond the hype? So I'm starting with probably the most difficult question to start with. So who would like that first? Angela, you look like you've got an answer to that one.
Well, I'm laughing a little bit at your the most difficult question, but you're right, it is. And the real impact. Well, when I think about this question, I think about the idea of the way many are doing business analysis today will not survive. And I'm like, wow, we're going to throw out there some just controversy right away with this, right? It's just the old role of a BA won't survive. We have to reinvent ourselves. Now, the purpose of our role remains, but how we do the work is dramatically changing. And if you don't believe that yet, challenge what you think AI means. If AI to you is one button to have a chat with and ask a question with, we've got to up our game on understanding AI. And I'll leave that there for the moment.
Fantastic. I'm sure we will elaborate on some of those thoughts, but that's a really, really good provocation to start with, a positive provocation. So, Ian, I know you've got experience of all sorts of elements of AI. What's your view? Would you add anything to what Angela said there?
Yeah, so the impact on business analysis as a profession, maybe, I guess, again, a bit of controversy. I agree with Angela in that things are going to change. Things are going to change right across the board. If you've read a book called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman, he says, it's definitely coming. We could do nothing about it. Just like we couldn't in the past with the Industrial Revolution. You know, they used to break those machines, didn't they? And because it was taking people's jobs. And they'd all then move from Manchester to London, and they'd create the slums and all that. There is nothing we can do to stop this. So we need to embrace it. But the biggest change for me, I think, for business analysts is that more so now than ever, we need to guard our territory. We have this superpower, and that superpower is our brains, our analysis. But and we used to have a safe territory where we would do our analysis, then we would then engage with developers who would develop the code, the testers further down the life cycle. They're all shifting left. They're all shifting left because their jobs are at risk, and they're at risk with the low code, no code kind of development techniques that we have. So we've got to wake up a little bit. So it's not only that shift left in the development cycle, there's also a shift right from business users who can now use these tools. So we are kind of somewhere in the middle, and we're going to get swallowed up unless we say, hang on, people, we've got this superpower that everybody really values, which is our analytical skills. If we add these AI development tools and really expand our repertoire, then I think we're in a fantastic position, but we just need to wake up to what's happening in the world and not get left behind.
Fantastic. So I love that. So Angela sort of started by saying things probably things have changed and are going to change, and we need to keep up with that. And then Ian, you're kind of adding, and we need to know, that everything's moving left and right, and we need to be very confident about what we do, and we need to embrace that change. So last but by no means least on this one, Karen, what would you add?
I'm really fascinated seeing this whole shift left and shift right and how that's going to play out. So there is still a need to understand how you're going to get value out of a tool. That doesn't go away. So there'll be people at the moment thinking I can adopt large language model tools like Copilot and just be able to reap the benefit. But you still have to think through, how are you going to use that? How are you going to get the value? Where are the use cases? How are you going to adopt it? But as Ian said, that's kind of shifting. Your users are shifting right into that space where they're not just waiting for someone like a developer to build that for them, but they're doing it themselves. So the long term, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But what I do know is that AI or any kind of IT, the growth seems to be exponential, but people don't grow exponentially. So in the midterm, I think there'll still be that BA role to help facilitate how you get the value out of this different tooling. But interestingly, it probably won't include as much of the technical dev type involvement and perhaps QA. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and just bringing some of the and I think your point about actually not knowing, no one can predict the future. You can kind of see how it's shaping, but things kind of emerge. And I'm just sort of reflecting on some of the comments in the chat. So Fabrizio is saying, actually, I've lost the comment. Oh, yeah. So actually, BA work has changed even before Gen I, and Michelle's adding that actually, emails, the internet, mobile phones. It's funny. I was thinking about, there was a time when people were talking about end user computing and these sorts of things. So we've always, as a community, adapted. I suppose a question I'll put to all of you is and I know we've all been in this business a while, right, or this community a while. Do you think the pace of change is genuinely faster this time, right? Because I know that's a cliche that the pace of change is getting faster, but is it genuinely true this time? Angela, you were nodding, and in fact, Karen, you're nodding. But let's go to Angela first.
It's definitely changing faster, and I would agree with Fabrizio that it has always changed, and we've always been evolving over the 25, 30 years I've been in this field. However, there has been quite a large number, and usually it's larger organizations that have been able to stay pretty consistent with how they do the work. And that's where it's like, whoa, and they've been very slow to shift and change their practices overall. And the change is gonna happen so much faster that those larger organizations are really gonna feel it if they don't shift as fast, and it's faster than they're used to.
Fantastic. Karen, I think you were nodding as well. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we just can't, as humans, grasp that sort of exponential trajectory of change. It is changing fast. And I was just reflecting on a few months ago, and a couple of you on the panel know this, that I went into a self-driving car, a self-driving taxi in the US. We all had a go at that. But if you just said to me 2 years ago whether or not that would have happened in my lifetime, I would have probably said no, because I couldn't see how that would work in a mixed economy of cars on the street. I couldn't see how that would come, and yet here we are 2 years later with some cities like already confidently adopting it and others looking to roll it out. So that's just an example of you just can't get your head around the speed of these things. But we are still people. It's still, there's at the moment, there's still people at the end of these processes, right? And they don't work like that. They don't go that fast. So there's this kind of gap between the two things, and how do you bridge it?
Yeah. I just want to bring in some questions because we've got quite a few questions coming in. So let's see where some of these take us. So Nitesh asks or Nitish, and again, apologies if I mispronounce anyone's name. Nitish says, from your rich experience, can you share some areas where we absolutely should not use AI as business analysts? Are there any such areas? Tricky one. Who wants that one?
I'll take that one. I might put a quite small slant on it. And AI is great at producing lots of documentation. Yeah, the old days of look at this report I've done, feel the weight on that, and nobody'd read it. Yeah, nobody'd read it. I think AI is kind of in that space, but I do think that there is an area. I mean, obviously, in answer to your question, kind of health, critical health systems and things like that. You really need the human eyes, or you need the human eyes on everything, because AI still fibs, doesn't it? AI still lets you down at the vital moment. So financial systems, health systems, military systems, you would not use you would use AI to a point perhaps, but then you'd have to have really good governance around that. But the point I was going to make is that tell you what, come back to me.
It's okay. It happens to us all, Ian.
I went off on a tangent and never came back.
It was a very, very.
It's come back. It was all that documentation, wasn't it, that is produced? And what I would say is that it's very behind the curve with visuals, I think. Especially kind of BA visuals. I would love there to be a tool out there which I can plug a transcript in and a couple of documents, and it produces a perfect process model of visuals, because people still want to learn visually. Yeah, they still want that, because people learn in different ways. And I think that we're a little bit further away from that yet. It can produce loads of words, but it just can't do that visual thing. So when we're trying to apply change, and we need to try different means, I think it's still a little bit behind.
Mm. Excellent. Well, yeah, I know. Thank you, and I'm sure we'll come back to some more ideas around there. And we've got questions, and again, I know a number of you are chatting in the chat. Do keep that up. If you have questions, if you put them in the Q&A tab, we'll take some more of those in a moment. But I want to take a slight tangent now, and I was wondering how you are because we talked about like the sea shift change, like the step change in business analysis and AI, but like, how are you seeing AI influence day-to-day analysis tasks now? So, like, people using it for elicitation modeling. I mean, Ian, you mentioned process modeling, their stakeholder engagement. And like, what kind of real-world examples are you seeing, use cases of people using AI tools for business analysis? So, who would like to take that one? Angela, you're nodding, so I'm gonna interpret that as volunteering.
Well, I'll tell you something I was playing with yesterday, but I think that's going to be a little more future facing. But today, what am I seeing people use AI for? I would say the best use I'm seeing right now is using rapid prototyping no-code tools like Lovable, for example, where BAs are working together with stakeholders in the room and building working prototypes in a matter of minutes with them and refining them on the spot. And so that is absolutely happening in many environments today. And we're hearing about BAs being very successful with building working software literally in minutes with their team. And I want to challenge those of you out there who are like, really? But there's got to be all this pre-work. Yes and no, right? We can get to that working prototype faster than it takes us to build a product vision or problem statement. And I know we could argue all day what should happen first, but I just want to leave you thinking about that. Then like yesterday, I was playing around with the new ChatGPT agent. So what I did is I was actually, can I find the prompt I used? I asked ChatGPT in agent mode to create a slide deck of possible ways to improve a process. And what I did is I connected a Google Drive to it with all the standard operating procedures, process flows, visuals, existing process assets. And it took 19 minutes and it came back. It analyzed the documents that I gave it. It went and searched the web and did research on the best practices for those processes. And then it researched ways AI could be used in those processes and came back with a PowerPoint deck already created with recommendations. Was it perfect? No, but that's not the point. We cannot expect perfection. We want to leverage it. Just think about how long that task would take and how I could be prepared for a meeting with stakeholders about a new project to improve their process. And then I was like, tell me how you got to this in my prompt. And it gave me a transparency log of the order of what it did, what it looked at, and what it found in every single document, its conclusions, what it analyzed. And it actually took my process flow, which, by the way, I used AI to create, and put it in the slide deck.
Fantastic.
So just like, right, we think about collaborating and futuristic. What if I did that with business leaders in the room? What if I did that with technology folks in the room?
Absolutely. So which really leans into some of the really good parts of agile and delivery, which is both iterative, incremental, and collaboration. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but however, I'll just kind of put it out there that co-creation of solutions is very very aligned to that. Ian or Karen, anything to add in terms of real world use of AI tools in analysis?
Yeah, I've got something to add. We're in the business of making things go faster. Yeah, amongst other things, but making things. So I think it's unreasonable for us to expect, for us not to expect people to want us to go faster. So we have a responsibility. If we are inflicting speed on our clients, we need to get faster ourselves. And I mentioned that that process model analogy. Now I've created an agent. I call it Navi. Now that tells me how to write a process. It gives me a list and it says, right, write a box here, that flow is going from here to this, and this is the annotation you want to put on it. And step by step, it tells me how to do it. Again, as Angela said, is it perfect? No, it isn't. But it gives you that starter for 10. And yeah, it's reusable. And yeah, we've got to speed up. Gone are the days where we spend, we look at something and say, well, that's going to take a month. We have to. We got a responsibility to eat our own dog food. Is that what people say?
I think the phrase you're looking for, Ian, is drink our own champagne.
Oh, okay, that's a better one.
But or eat our own dog food is the other version of it. But Karen, anything to add?
Can I mention some really obvious but boring ones that people might be
please,
going, I do all this. But that whole thing of, so we never have stakeholders' time. Their stakeholders are always busy. So, use it as a pseudo stakeholder, bootstrap yourself up in the new domain area that you're in, get it to kind of act as a review partner against what you're trying to understand and what you're checking. It's so simple but obvious. And I guess in the same way, things like, acceptance criteria for tickets, there's just so many obvious things. There's probably other things I can think of, but that we, as a BA, we struggle. We go, like Ian said, people want us to go faster, but what do we need? We need other people's input, because we need the stakeholders to come and speak to us and tell us what they're doing, help us answer things. But if we can cut them out of the loop to a certain extent, create yourself a prompt that kind of acts like a peer BA, then that's just obvious but powerful. I think the other thing is that I come across so many BAs who work on their own in companies with no other BA team around them. So that I'm not stuck. Don't call themselves your ChatGPT partner, your new senior BA, but that could be a way of just making sure you've got some sort of support there that's not that makes your job easier. So there's obvious ways that you can just get started with this stuff if you haven't already.
Yeah, I agree, and I think just sort of riffing from what you were saying there, Karen. One thing I find when perhaps doing some work with a new client or a new domain, is I might ask an AI model, what do I'm going to be doing some work with this organization. What concepts do I need to know about when I walk in there? Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know if you're walking into a completely new context. So like maybe if you were in insurance and you've never worked with actuaries before, it's like, well, tell me what words actuaries use so I can make sure I understand them, at least broadly, so I can speak the same language. So there's those kind of elements as well. Now we have like about 10 million questions that have come through, so I'm going to try and go through as many as we can. So Michelle asks, as a profession, how is our certification changing to keep pace? The BCS diploma syllabus hasn't significantly changed for a long time. The BA book is over 10 years old. Are we teaching what BAs today really need? I'm going to throw that one open to anyone who wants it.
I'll take it. Shall I take it? I'll take the first part, if you like. Being as I do a bit of work for the BCS. Hi, Michelle. Hope you're well. It's a tough question, but the BCS diploma talks about techniques. It doesn't talk about tools. And it doesn't talk about tools because that would make it quickly go out of, become dated. So is it totally in line with AI? Probably not. Probably needs to bear that in mind, but it is tool agnostic. If you class AI as a tool, and I think we have this evening, then I'm not sure. I'll put it out to the panel. Do we see AI as a tool, and is analysis still analysis? And do we still need the techniques that we are taught so that we can use AI more effectively?
We still need them. I guess I like to think of it like, did all these certifications change when the internet came on in 1998 to teach the internet to people? No. Right? So yes, our tools, techniques, and our toolbox are going to evolve somewhat just due to advances in capabilities versus tools, I would say. But I don't think the certifications and bodies of knowledge need to teach AI just like they didn't need to teach us HTML or internet. The internet's evolved how many generations in 25, 30 years?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think, sorry, Karen, just before I forget, I think there's probably two subtleties here. There's should the certification and bodies of knowledge and bodies of whatever, should they be updated because of AI? That's one question, and a second question is, are they just stale? That's probably a separate, broader question, of which we could have a much longer conversation. But Karen, I interrupted.
No, you didn't. No, I don't feel that I'm qualified to talk about certification, but but I'm going to anyway. Or maybe I'm just going to talk about the concepts. So putting the whole certification thing aside, accreditation, whatever. I think as we get the ability for some of the more standard, creating a process map, going through, creating a better user story, whatever, we get that, that ability we get that through the tool or whatever whatever we're calling AI now, then it becomes more important to hone the craft around the real concepts of critical thinking and the real concepts of systems thinking. I think you double down on that, because that to me isn't where, I don't think, again, I don't know what the future's going to be, but I'm guessing there's going to be a longer tail on that in terms of our ability to add to what work someone's trying to do, that the system takes kind of the easier grunt work, and we take the more nuanced kind of, does this department need one enterprise tool or two? How do you trade off the differences between value and benefit and cost, and and all of those things that I don't think we get into as much in the certification. The certification does sort of teach the tools, but it doesn't teach the why those tools are important sometimes, or I don't feel it goes into that as much. So I think that's where my head's at the moment.
Yeah, which actually leads me on to, again, I want to take a slight tangent. And we've sort of talked about BAs using tools, which is AI tools, which is, of course, a good thing for us to talk about, given that's part of the remit of today. But what I want to shift to now is, like, what role can BAs play in help shaping AI projects and initiatives to ensure they're solving the right problems in the right way? Because I'm sure there'll be some people on this session who have got like a sponsor saying, just deploy Copilot or this tool or that tool or whatever the favorite tool happens to be. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. It might be perfectly fine. But like, how should we be engaged in those sorts of situations? And Karen, I'm going to pick on you first.
You mean as in the BA team to be engaged in
yeah, and what value can we add in that situation?
Yeah, so interestingly, I'm involved in that at the moment. So I'm involved in the Copilot rollout in the authority, and I'm involved in kind of a working group to look at AI opportunities. And it does come back to, where is the value, and how do we set the conditions to get the value? So I talked earlier, and the rest of the panel mentioned about, these shifts around, so that we're kind of pushing out the development to a certain extent. It lessens the path from coming up with an idea and being able to deploy it or explore it or whatever, and through the prototyping like Andrea talked about. But you still want to be able to get the value, right? Value might be cost, but value might be time as well. I've noticed when we've been rolling out the licenses, and this won't be unique to my area. In fact, I know it isn't, because Amisha is involved in that as well. She's doing the same in her organisation, is that there's this view, again, from maybe people that are not so involved in development, people that are not so involved in change, that this is a simple tool that you can just input a couple of lines and you get what you want out of it. But actually it takes a while to create a decent prompt. You do have to test a prompt. You do have to have some sort of responsibility in how you're going to make sure you get out of it what you want. You do have to iterate. You do have to learn. And so I think that's another area BAs can be involved in and help out. And that's where I'm kind of trying to shift our involvement in that particular kind of area where I work. So it allows more opportunity to business users, but we can't just, these things are expensive. They've also got a environmental impact as well. So we need to be learning how to use them properly and not just kind of using them like Google. Yeah, and I think that's where the BA can come and help.
Absolutely, and I will just throw some random words in here, which are things that we should all be considering, and we could probably run entire webinars on all of these topics. But one is, sustainability and environmental impact of AI, and that's one topic. Ethics and inclusion is another really big topic, and governance of this thing, whatever this thing is. We may well touch on some of those things, but just to give you just a random example of what I was thinking about on the other day on what now is considered a day-to-day use tool of AI, I was running some meetings with a transcript, which is quite a normal thing to do these days. and I noticed that one person, because they happened to have quite a strong accent, their transcription was less accurate than the others, which is probably going to mean if you do a summary, their points are going to be less prominent than those without an accent. And you start to think about some of the systemic biases that are out there anyway, and you have to think about these things. So the old thing of trust and validate and keeping a human in the loop is probably a sensible thing to do, even for us using it as AIs. But anyway, I will get off of that soapbox and go back to some of the questions that people are asking. Fabrizio asks, or Fabrizio notices that he sees some people calling AI or referring to AI as a stakeholder. What's your view on that? Well, that was Ian. You've laughed, so you have to.
I don't know. I tell them sometimes. Does anybody else tell their AI? You tell them off when they fib?
I talk to anything. I talk to the TV.
I get angry. I get angry sometimes. I see it, I guess, as I see it as a helper. I see it as a researcher and a helper. It's got many hats, but you actually tell it, don't you? As you prompt, I need you to be a data architect, and it takes on that persona. So from that perspective, yes, it can be any type of helper with you, but you've got to be careful and try not to get angry with it, because I think it comes back with worse answers if you said some abusive language down and say, "Come on, stop telling me untruths."
It definitely lies, because it's always hilarious to ask what your favorite off the shelf, like ChatGPT or whatever. Tell me everything you know about like Adrian Reed or whatever. And then so tell me more, and it will get to the point where it says stuff that is hilariously untrue, or at least maybe it's just me. And so it will lie. So good. So let's move on to another question. This question comes from Chris. And Chris says, if we assume that a good future for us is BAs being armed with powerful AI tools to help us and boost our productivity while still providing critical thought, how do we prevent AI tools inadvertently kicking away the entry ladder for new entrants into the profession? You're nodding, Angela.
It's a huge question, and one that I've been thinking about for years now. And I think we're not the only field dealing with this. This is a question in a lot of professions right now. First of all, I want to think about AI as a productivity tool is just one of what I call 3 uses for AI for BAs. We also have to use it as part of a team, right? Our developers are coding with AI. It's part of the SDLC. It's automating parts of the wider team we work with. So we can't automate one of our tasks without looking at the bigger picture, because what good is it if we automate a task with AI that doesn't need to exist anyway? And then the bigger picture of AI being used through business processes and integrating it into existing systems and workflows and orchestration. So yeah, it's
hard.
It is. It's really hard, and my brain is going so many directions. Reel me back to the original question, Adrian.
So the original question was around. Oh, see, I've scrolled away from it now.
Oh no!
It's
kicking away the entry ladder for new BAs.
Oh,
kicking away the entry level.
So everyone's dealing with this, and what I think that we're seeing is we're going to see an evolution, and I'm already seeing this in how we educate. So instead of teaching the grunt skills to junior level BAs, we are going to be teaching higher level thinking skills, using AI driven role plays to help teach skills and role play scenarios right away, which may have previously been done for more senior level roles. So we're going to have to, obviously our university systems are also going to have to teach at a different level. So it's just different skills are going to have to be caught up and taught, not only at the university level, but then as we bring in entry level. And so we're probably going to be teaching things like end-to-end journey mapping and value stream mapping, and really looking at things end-to-end and at a higher level than teaching the very detailed analysis skills. The examples we're going to have to give in courses are going to have to be higher level examples to get people thinking and interacting with stakeholders and AI at a higher level, not your purpose is to document a spec detail level.
Yeah.
So it will evolve to the point there's going to be some pain along the way, but every industry is going through this. And in my work, I talk to others that are teaching and leading these paths in other industries, and we're all talking about the same thing. And how are we seeing this evolve, right?
Yeah. Just I want to bring in a couple of comments from the chat and a question. So Wilner says we refer to that as diamond-shaped teams, fewer junior and more senior BAs that are equipped with AI, so potentially hard for juniors to get in. But as Angela says, perhaps it's like that actually the barrier in terms of critical thinking and analytical thinking is higher because some of the more I use this term very broadly, but clerical elements, or not clerical, but the stuff that AI can assist with is done by AI. And a question from Michelle. Michelle says that she attended a webinar that talks about the danger of AI creating a two-tier workforce in the future because we're not thinking about the people side of AI adoption. So what do our panelists think about how AI is being rolled out? Are we developing the skills we need or just focusing on the technology?
Well, everybody focuses on the technology, right? That's what we always do. That's what always happens. But I do agree we need to be looking at the people side. I do wonder if it just opens up an opportunity, but I also worry that might take a while. So again, taking off Angela's point of it'd be really great if you started to get that higher order of BAs coming in, but then traditionally, that's your consultancy area. So I'm not sure in the near term how the people in the power roles, the people in the board level will respond to that. But I think it's a good step in the right direction because I actually think that that it should be more. Would be more of a meritocracy, I guess is the right word in terms of how we take these tools forward because we're all going to be impacted by them, and having these hierarchies where it's starting to tip that already because you can't always say now because you've had 25 years experience that anymore. There's things are moving so fast that some people are coming in and knowing more about particular areas of and how to get the value out of particular tools that I've just not had anything to do with. So I'm just kind of throwing out different futures there. I guess there could be a bad future and a good future. It depends how we grab it, but I think we all have to be proactive about moving it away from it's the next new shiny tool, because we haven't actually, you go back in history, you can see we don't learn that lesson time after time after time.
Well, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because usually there will be emergent outcomes, both positive and negative, of new technology shifts that nobody really envisaged at the time. Like, I heard it. This is a complete aside, but one of the pieces of technology that led to a huge such social change was the electric light bulb, because now people can stay up and work in factories or wherever once it is dark, right? And that changes the shift to the way that we live. The internet, if you'd have said to people 20 years ago or whatever that, well, high street banks will be closing because they won't be needed anymore, you probably wouldn't have believed you. It's just the pace, as we talked about, the pace of change with AI and self-driving cars, for example. It's moving at quite a pace. So I want to pivot. We discussed ethics a little bit, but I do want to just hone in on that for just a moment. So thinking about ethical or organizational considerations, what types of ethical or organizational considerations should BAs help their teams and stakeholders navigate when it comes to AI?
So I think we've always been in the game of losing people to make things more efficient. Yeah, less people. I mean, you walk into Tesco and now there's the self-checkout in the supermarkets. Self-checkout. So we've always been in the game of replacing people with innovation and technology. But this time I think it's frightening. This time you're talking to people who may well lose their jobs. and you're finding out about their job, and it's more of a threat now than it ever has been. And the future is so uncertain that it's just a difficult position. So you need all of that, I guess, change management, all that empathy, and all those soft skills, more so now in this uncertain future than ever before.
Yeah, Angela, Karen, anything to add to that?
Well, I think ethics is going to be a super important part, and it's a lot of our role to help manage that, because we understand the data and the data flow and where the data comes from. So we might see the bigger picture of that bias or ethical issues easier than others if we're doing our role correctly. So it's just something I feel like it's going to be one of those tasks or skills that maybe doesn't even get others, like people aren't going to ask us to do it. We just have to do it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I always think it's really curious when people point out biases in AI. It's like, well, that's because they exist in the world, and AI is just perpetuating systemic biases that exist. So in some ways, I think actually a really interesting experiment to do would be like query AI, find out its biases, because they probably, it's like a bit of a self-awareness thing for what's out there in the world. But yeah, I agree with that. I think being the ethical conscience, or part of the ethical conscience, and asking, okay, which voice isn't at this table? Which person or people might be affected by this in a way that we hadn't envisaged, and how can we engage, get engagement, participate, and test, and iterate. So I just want to bring in a question from Richard, and Richard asks: as we become truly embedded with AI, for example, of prototyping on the fly, as Angela mentioned earlier, how will projects be affected? So, for example, will methodologies be thrown out of the window as they become inefficient? Will every project be a hybrid as dictated by our new AI gods, or perhaps move back to waterfall as we will be so much more efficient? There's a question to grapple with. Who wants that one? Angela, go ahead.
This could be a whole other webinar, right?
Yeah, I know, right.
And I wrote about it a lot in the book, that the idea of projects and phases, I think, is going to continue to diminish. And we're going to move more towards continuous analysis, not a phase of analysis, continuous deployment, continuous management, more of a product mindset than a project mindset.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that shift. We're seeing that shift for sure. Ian, Karen, anything to add?
I mean, that's not an AI problem. That's always been happening for a long time. And the fight is against the governance kind of side of things. So you have this standoff between those two areas. So this might move things a bit quicker in that direction, because there's always been that tension. And I do believe, I've always felt that there's a place for iterative understanding, not so much agile, but that building up of understanding and bringing people along on the journey, which doesn't sit well with that kind of that more methodical life cycle methodology. So maybe AI just kind of brings some of those points to the fore.
It just brings the threads together. And actually, that now's a good time to bring in a question from Petra, who asks a question for Karen. Do you see a speed of adoption between government and commercial organisations? And the way I'm interpreting Petra's question, and if I've got this incorrect, let me know, Petra, is do you see perhaps government as being faster, slower, or the same as commercial organisations?
With relation specifically to AI, I can't at the top of... So generally government's slower because of the bureaucracy, really. That's kind of the main thing. And a lot of it exists for the right reasons, but then because it some of those right reasons aren't as valid reasons anymore. I'll talk about in the UK, the democratic process and things that are in primary legislation that shouldn't be in primary legislation anymore because things have moved, and that you just wouldn't put. I know there's examples of things in primary legislation where it says something absolutely has to be created as a paper document, which is just, you wouldn't put that in there now. So it's because we have to unpick those things and go through the same process to get that stuff moving along. So that's the blocker from a government perspective. In terms of AI, I don't think if you took that away, it probably wouldn't make any. There probably wouldn't be any. I can't see a reason why there would be a significant difference. But it is that sort of, again, that legacy. And governments, remember, always tend to be more legacy environments because they have a much longer kind of history of being around and evolving than perhaps commercial entities do. So I don't think it's a specific, again, AI problem. It's more about that sort of legacy situation environment that we're in.
Yeah, I often think there's a whole separate topic of legislative agility and governance agility within organisations, which probably could be 2 webinars of their own. So I'm going to leave that one there. So very briefly, we're starting to come towards the sort of end, but still a few more questions to get in. So I want to think about skills or mindsets. So what skills or mindsets would you say BAs need to exhibit to stay relevant and effective in an AI-rich environment? So mindset. So Ian.
Yeah, so I missed a question earlier about the role of a BA, but now I got a chance to say what I was going to say under this banner, and that is that we need to almost be solution architects, because we need to have the art of the possible in our minds when we are talking to clients. I think, and that AI, and we talk about it moving fast. It's moving incredibly fast with MCPs, and systems being able to talk to other systems. And that's where it becomes really powerful, that you link up systems, they access CRMs, ERPs, and send out an email. That's when it really replaces the manual tasks. So I think an understanding of that, because we're almost in sales, because we are front and center with the client, we're almost saying, do you know what, wouldn't it be great if we could get rid of this and then reimagine the workplace of the future, which looks like this, and then sell the dream, because it's possible now. But for that to happen, we need to understand the art of the possible. We need to stay on top of it. There's loads of YouTubes out there that explain it, and it seems like every week something new is coming out. So it's staying at the forefront of that and remaining relevant, but being able to have those conversations with our stakeholders. Yeah,
so staying current, staying on top of it, staying positive. So Karen, mindsets.
Yes, it's probably what I mentioned earlier about you're more of a consultancy type. You want to kind of develop those consultancy skills, so that systems thinking mindset, that bigger picture mindset, that kind of strategic mindset. Now, I know from experience that some BAs currently in the profession wouldn't feel that that's the sort of place they want to be in, because they're probably more towards the technical and delivery end. And so, I guess you really have to think about, if that's not your space, if that's not, and I've firmly, those 2 roles currently have have equal value, equal kind of weight. So I'm not discounting, I value both of those roles in my team, but I do wonder that the technical role might need to start shifting left, as Ian mentioned earlier, and then that is your consulting skill. So if you think you're a BA now that isn't interested in developing that, you might want to think about how, other paths you may want to go in.
Yeah, transition to something else. And again, it's interesting because, a way that we used to describe business analysis, I'm probably going back 10 or 15 years now, but there was a definition about internal consultancy. And it's sort of interesting how that's sort of mirroring some of the stuff you're saying there, Karen. So Angela, mindsets.
I would say mindset of continuous analysis, continuous delivery, outcomes over outputs, monitoring, supervising, human in the loop. We've got to make sure we're not just letting AI run wild. We're constantly monitoring and supervising it. And I think of that mindset. So overall, I summarize it with this. You have to be equally passionate about the innovation of AI as you are fearful of what it could do. And if those two aren't in balance, something's wrong. So balance that fear of what might go wrong, bias, errors, rogue AI, with the passion for innovation, and you're probably going to be on the right track with your analysis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. I need to let that sink in, but I love it. So, excellent. So, just before we move to close, you're all speaking at the Business Analysis Conference Europe. So, without giving too much away, I'm going to invite you to just talk briefly about what you'll be talking about at the conference. And while you do that, I'm going to just put a link to the conference website in the chat. And I'm also going to, if I can, I've got too many windows open. If I can find the right button, I will share the conference website as well while you are talking. So, first of all, so Angela, what will you be talking about?
Oh, I am going to be on a panel about BA managers and BA practices and how we keep those leveling up and intact in this new world.
In this new world that we face. Karen, what will you be talking about?
So myself and my colleague Amisha will be talking about the different experiences we've had around rolling Copilot out in our different departments, organisations, and helping BA see kind of what that might mean for them when they're maybe doing something similar in their organisation.
Fantastic. And last but by no means least, Ian, what will you be talking about?
So I'll be talking with my colleague John, and John is, I'm very fortunate to work with John because he is right at the, as soon as news comes out about AI, he's on top of it and he alerts me all the time. He says, look at this, look at this. So we're going to talk about RevOps, introduce the concept of RevOps. There's not many BAs who work in revenue operations, marketing and sales. So we're talking about that. We're talking about modernizing as a BA. We're going to do a little demo of creating an agent in 5 minutes, and we are going to explain how we are creating an army of agents, a workforce of agents. We even give them names and how we create those in the process of selling and marketing with our clients.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, yeah, definitely. Worth checking out the BA Conference Europe. So the link is in the chat there. So finally, what is like your personal closing takeaway of all we've talked about, or even if it's something we haven't talked about, what would you like people on this session to go away thinking? So Karen, your top takeaway.
There's a real opportunity for us to be more consultative and be involved in outcomes, in influencing outcomes and just getting better solutions for people that we don't, we're doing all the grunt work. Get rid of the grunt work and be able to do that. If that's the sort of BA you are, I think that there could be a marvellous opportunity here if we perhaps sell it a little bit. Don't panic that there won't be any jobs. Yeah.
Be prepared, but don't panic. Excellent. Ian, your top takeaways?
Be inquisitive, get involved, and the fact that you've got this superpower, which is your analytical skills, which are very important. So use them, go into it with confidence, and don't hide away from it.
Fantastic. Don't hide away from it. And last but no means least, Angela, your top takeaways?
Yeah, definitely lean in. If you find yourself resisting learning about AI, see what you can do to overcome that and lean in. I mean, it's not going away. It's going to touch every facet of every business process very, very soon. And lean in to be part of it and get excited about it. We need more people doing good with AI If you're fearful of the bad that can happen, that's real, but we need more of us working to do good. So be part of it.
Absolutely. Be aware and balance off that the cybersecurity elements, as you say, keep that balance, but be excited about the positive that it can do as well. So if you are live, do stay on for just a few more minutes, because I've got just a few things to share with you at the very, very end, which you won't want to miss. But before that, so first of all, a big virtual round of applause for our panelists, for the insights that they have shared. And I'm just going to go around like how people will, I'm sure, want to know more about what you do. They want to stay in touch. So how can people connect with you? So Karen, how can people stay in touch with you?
LinkedIn is the easiest way. Just find me on there. I'm happy to talk to people about all sorts of things. I'm interested in all sorts of areas. Just generally a inquisitive BA. So happy to have conversations.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. And Ian, a best way for people to connect?
Come and see me at the conference and say hi.
Yes, good answer.
Not virtual.
I have a 32 after my username, Ian Richards. I think there's a 32 in there somewhere. So come and say hi, either way, virtually or in person.
Fantastic. And Angela, how can people stay in touch? And of course, your book, which we haven't mentioned yet, which we absolutely do need to mention, which is about AI.
Yeah, the book is available in the IIBA bookstore. And but stay in touch. I'm most active on LinkedIn from a social media perspective. Also have LinkedIn learning courses, some on AI, and then my BA Cube platform. So BA Cube, we've got community on BA Cube talking about AI and BA skills. So
fantastic. Well, thank you all for your the insight you have shared. And apologies to anyone's question we didn't get to, but we had approximately 1,024 questions raised. So I was keeping track with them that I could, but it shows that this is a topic that I'm sure we will talk about more and more in the community. So first of all, just a few community announcements before you log off for the session. The first is the next webinar. So you could literally be one of the first to register for our August webinar. We're going to be talking about the value proposition for business analysis with Laura Brandenburg. Some of you may have seen Laura's released a new book on a similar title, and she's agreed to have a chat and do a webinar on that topic. That will be one not to miss. If any of you know Laura, she's fantastic on these sorts of topics. And I really, really hope that you are all aware of BA Digest. If any of you aren't aware of BA Digest, where have you been? Because BA Digest is a free quarterly PDF magazine. And when I say free, I mean free. So you don't have to subscribe or give your email address, although we would love for you to do that, so you get it in your inbox. But literally, you can just go to the website. There are 20 editions of it now. It's been going for a while in PDF form. And literally, every quarter, it is rammed with stuff about business analysis. So what I would encourage you to do is take a look at BA Digest. You'll get a link in your email, or you can just go to badigest.link. That's badigest.link, which will give you the page there. And if you like it, do share it with your colleagues, because the more people that see it, the merrier. It's designed to be a platform for practitioners to share their knowledge. So excellent. Well, with that in mind, all that's left for me to say is a final thank you to Ian, Angela, and Karen for being fantastic panelists. Really looking forward to seeing you at the conference, if not before. Thank you to everyone who has attended live or has watched the recording. So, enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Until next time, bye for now.